Hello, Spirit House here again. Today we'll be covering chapter 2 of The Message of the Divine Iliad by Walter Russell, and chapter 2 is entitled The Law of Balance. The law of balance is the law of love upon which the universe is founded. The law is given to man for his coming renaissance of greater comprehension. It is, of all laws, the most inclusive and the most simple. It consists of but three words. These three words are the very foundation of all our material existence. All phenomena of matter or interchange between humans, economically, socially, and spiritually. I will read to you from the Divine Iliad. Great art is simple. My universe is great art, for it is simple. Great art is balanced. My universe is consummate art, for it is balanced simplicity. My universe is one in which many things have majestic measure, and again another many have measure too fine for the sensing. Yet I have not one law for majestic things and another law for things which are beyond the sensing. I have but one law for all, my opposed pairs of creating things. And that law needs but one word to spell it out. So hear me when I say that one word of my one law is balance. And if man needs two words to aid him in his knowing of the workings of that law, those words are balanced interchange. If man still needs more words to aid his knowing of my one law, give him another one, and let those three words be rhythmic balanced interchange. Balance is the foundation of all human relations, of the universe itself. The stars of heaven move in obedience to it. They cannot do otherwise. Cosmic disaster of untold dimension would follow such disobedience. The starry universe is so absolute in its balance that the movement of a dewdrop on any one planet necessitates the readjustment of the orbits of all the stars of heaven to that microcosmic event. Because of that law, all happenings are universal. Any action anywhere is extended for repetition everywhere. All motion is as omnipresent as the light of God is omnipresent. All effect is universal. God is balance. From the stillness of his balance in the unconditioned one light, he extends his balance to the conditioned universe of motion as two opposite, unbalanced conditions of two lights which seek balance through each other. Oppositely conditioned pairs in nature seek balance through each other by repeatedly giving all that each has to give to the other in rhythmic sequences. In nature, this process continues perpetually because in nature, all givings of one are perpetually balanced by equal re-givings of the other. Nature never takes that which is not given. This universe is founded upon love as manifested in the giving of one opposite to the other for re-giving. The earth gives its forests to the heavens, and the heavens give them back again to earth for equal re-giving. Every dewdrop given by the heavens is equally re-given to the heavens by the earth. Equal interchange between opposite conditions manifests the love principle of balance, upon which God's universal body is founded. Whatever is true of God's universal body is true of man's body. It is the equality of balance between the giving and re-giving of nature which makes its transactions perpetual. The lack of the love principle of rhythmic balanced interchange in the transactions of men is the reason for the ills of the body and for the disasters which make continuance of relations between man impossible. The seller of goods is also a buyer. If the seller gives less to his customers than the value of what he charges, he deprives his customers of the ability to re-give that which the seller needs to again become the seller. By sacrificing the goodwill which is the foundation of continuance in any business, the love principle has been subtracted from the transaction in the measure of an inequality of interchange. Neither man nor nation can continue an interchange of relations upon a harmonious basis of multiplying power when the universal love principle is violated. The law of balance is absolute. He who breaks that law will be equally broken by it. If each of the two conditions which forms the basis for every transaction between pairs of opposites in nature can be kept in balance with the other, the resultant effect is good. When they are out of balance with each other, the resultant effect is bad. Good and bad, sin and evil, measure the degree in which all pairs of oppositely conditioned effects of motion are either in balance with each other or out of it. In all our human relations, we ourselves make our own good and bad, or evils and sins by our desires and decisions to act either in or out of balance with universal law. There is no sin or evil in nature, for nature observes the law of balance. Every unbalanced effect in nature is balanced by its opposite unbalanced effect. The play of creation consists of dividing all idea into two opposite parts. What each half does in relation to the other half constitutes the play. Such divisions into halves are male and female, buyer and seller, positive and negative, compression and expansion, and countless other divisions of ideas into unbalanced pairs for the purpose of expressing those ideas. Whatever those opposed pairs do in any transaction results in an effect. All human relations are thus divided, and transactions between humans result in either good or bad effects, which we call happiness or misery, in accordance with whether the transaction is balanced or unbalanced. Man can make whichever he chooses. He can make happiness, success, wealth, friendships, and health only by obeying the law. He can never find them by disobeying the law. For eons, mankind has been breaking the law in an endeavor to find happiness, wealth, and power. Civilization has been built by the unbalanced power of might over right. Nations have enriched themselves by impoverishing other nations, expecting to find happiness by giving misery, expecting to attain power by depriving others of power. Without any exception, those who have broken the law have been equally broken by the law. This war-broken world of today is the result of yesterday's breaking of the law. Good, bad, evil, success, or failure are not qualities of nature. They are the product of man's actions resulting from his thinking, just as the product of his factories is the result of his thinking. Man can manufacture a pair of shoes which cause him physical agony. If they do not fit his feet, they are out of balance with their purpose. He can also manufacture physical and mental agony by unbalanced actions and decisions regarding his domestic, business, or social relations. All of man's troubles and blessings are manufactured by man. Man manufactured the misery and agony which drenched the world with the blood of all nations by manufacturing the conditions which made that misery inevitable. In nature, all effects of motion repeat their kind as through mirrored from cause to effect. Misery inflicted by greed and selfishness is radared back to the giver as misery. Likewise, the giver of love begets love by the same law. The law of love is absolute in nature. It has no relation to morality, religion, sin, good, or evil. It is the cause of all effects. The effect has no reality. Cause alone is. One cannot sin against God. God's universe of love is balance. Man cannot upset God's balance. He can but upset his own. He can create agony for himself or his fellow man by sinning against himself or his fellow man, but he cannot create agony for the God of love. God's mind is eternally ecstatic. His light is forever in equilibrium, at rest. God's creation is perfect. To the God mind, all stages of the workings of creation are always perfect. No matter how unbalanced or unrhythmic is the interchange between any of the opposites of creating things, that unbalance in them is balanced in God, just as the unbalance of the lever is balanced in its fulcrum. In this respect, I again quote from the divine Iliad, "All men will come to me in due time, but theirs is the agony of awaiting." That means the agony is man's alone, for man is manifesting God's idea of cause and effect in his creation by unbalanced actions as well as by balanced ones. For that reason, man's prayer to God should be to ask for knowledge and wisdom to manifest God worthily, in order that his thinking and his acting shall have the balance of the light in them. When we ask forgiveness for our trespasses, as we forgive those who have trespassed against us, it should not be in the sense that we have trespassed against God, or caused him grief or sorrow because of our acts, for that is impossible. It should be in the sense that we have trespassed against ourselves and our neighbors by breaking the law of rhythmic balance, interchange, in our dealings with them. We thus hurt ourselves and every other man on earth by lowering the standard of all mankind. Conversely, every balanced act raises the standard of all mankind, but no unbalanced act can affect universal balance. From the Creator's point of view, it is cause and effect working perfectly in accordance with universal law. Many of man's prayers ask God to violate universal law in order that man may escape the hurt brought on by his own unbalanced acts, or in other words, karma, as a side note. All hurt brought on by his own unbalanced acts. All through the war, such prayers arose from every home and pulpit, asking the balance of peace and love to arise from conditions of unbalance made by man himself. Many even blame God for their own actions. How often have we heard people say, if there is a God of love, why does he permit such suffering in the world? Many go further and say that God is punishing man for his sins. Many talk of a God of wrath and a jealous God. Such misconceptions of God and creation arise from a complete misunderstanding of the quality of love which the Creator has for his creation. This misunderstanding must be clarified. Man must know the attitude of God toward his creation. Also, he must know creation's processes. Creation is the imagined effect of a real cause. The cause is the desire of God to express his balanced, formless, changeless idea by dividing his idea into many parts, giving it many imagined forms, and setting those forms into motion to express the idea in sequences of changing events. Motion and effect only seem, they have no reality. God's attitude towards his creation of a universe of cause and effect is like man's attitude towards his own creation. The playwright conceives an idea for a play. It must be based upon cause and effect, governed by the universal law of love, for there is nothing in creation which is not so based. He divides his concept into many parts, unfolding a story that always depicts transactions between pairs of opposite conditions which manifest the working of universal law. He loves his concepts, his imaginings, and all of the effects he is creating because of the balanced and unbalanced inner relations between his characters working out the law. In the plot are good and bad, hero and villain, saint and sinner, dark and light, humor and pathos, happiness and agony, kindliness and intolerance. Without these there would be no play. The playwright loves each part of his creation equally, with the whole as one idea. To be a master playwright, each part must be true to universal law. Perfection for him means making everything work truthfully in balance with universal law. During his entire period of creative expression, his mental attitude is that of ecstasy, which always accompanies every masterful creation. There is no change of emotion in that ecstasy. He does not hate the villain, despise the meanness of the cheat in his play, or become angry because of intolerance of another character. Nor does he express the opposite emotions of joy, love, or happiness because of those happenings in which we call good in the play. The master playwright could not do this if he would, for it is not in the nature of the unchanging God mind to express all of those different emotions at one time. These different emotions are but the imagining of different parts of the whole, and all imagined parts void each other in the whole. God's whole mental attitude is the changeless one of love for the whole, and ecstasy for the fulfillment of his desire to create. God, the master playwright, is master creator. The universal play of creation is his imagining. His mental attitude is one unchanging ecstasy, in knowing that the unfoldings of his imaginings are true to his law. Even in most minute of microcosmic events which manifest, his imaginings unfold with as strict an observance to universal law as the most majestic event in his heavens. As and when they unfold in accordance with universal law, his ecstasy for the fulfillment of his desire for creating the image forms of his imagining is unchanging. There are no emotions of grief, sorrow, anger, jealousy, or pity in the God mind because of the happenings to any pairs of his creating things. To him it is all good, for all of it is the working of the law. Imagine how untrue to the nature of the unchanging God mind to feel the changing emotions of grief, anger, jealousy, and other emotions at the same time in relation to the countless happenings to the infinity of parts in the master playwright's play of creation as manifested in his vast universe. To the Creator all is perfection. That which man calls sin and evil are but experiences wherein two unbalanced conditions fail to demonstrate the law of balance by interchanging their two opposed conditions equally. That is all there is to any action whatsoever in God's creating universe. If a machine created by man breaks down because of unbalanced interchange between its opposing parts, or because of overwork or lack of oil to lubricate its parts, we do not think of it as evil or sin committed by the machine or by its creator or operator. We think of it as breaking the laws which govern the successful operation of the machine, and as an accident or an experience. Such a breakdown of the machine may be due to bad judgment, negligence, ignorance, or other causes, but in every case, the cause of it is unbalanced interchange between its opposed interchanging parts and conditions, all traceable to cause and effect. If man learns something from such a breakdown, which will keep him from repeating the cause which led to the accident, he has profited thereby. If he fails to profit by the experience, he will have to again suffer the consequences of it until he does learn to profit by the lesson. In neither case has the thought of sin or evil been connected with the experience. The same principle applies to man's human relations. When these are so extraordinarily out of balance that misery, agony, or death is the resultant effect, man, individually or collectively, gradually learns a lesson which eventually keeps him from repeating the same breaches of the law. In the meantime, man suffers the effects of his breaches of the law, individually and collectively, by broken friendships, loss of health, failures in business, unhappiness in home, enmities, and countless other ill effects arising from his own creation, to culminate to such colossal disasters as world wars with their consequent wholesale carnage. To relate any of the ills to sins against God is like relating a tornado to a sin against God. The tornado is the effect of unbalance between the two opposite temperature conditions. One condition is attempting to gain supremacy over the other by outbalancing the other. Universal law will never permit this breach of the law between opposite weather conditions. The resultant damage is the ill effect of this breach, just as damage to children's shins is the resultant effect of unbalance between opposite conditions when two children playing seesaw break the law of rhythmic balanced interchange while manifesting the law of balance in playing that game, or between two men who try to get the better of each other in a business transaction. Likewise, God is not angry with earth because it generates an angry tornado, nor is he grievous or sorrowful because of the damage which earth perpetrates upon itself. Nor does he threaten the earth with punishment because of such an unbalanced action. Earth punishes itself for that action by the hurt of it upon itself. The measure of the hurt is the measure of earth's breach of the law. The tornado is a perfect manifestation of the inevitable working of God's law. It is, therefore, good even to the hurt of it. All of man's evil and sinful actions are likewise good, even though he is hurt by them. So-called sins and evil relate only to man. To God or nature they do not exist. To God they are but perfect effect of cause. There is naught but good in the light of love, from which the universe is begotten, for love cannot beget anything but love. The secret of harmonious human relations lies in a deeper understanding of rhythmic, balanced interchange between two opposite, unbalanced halves of all transactions. Unbalance is necessary in order for interchange to take place. For without two unbalanced conditions, motion could not take place at all. No matter how great the desire is to walk, one cannot do so until he loses his balance by dividing it into opposite halves to become the basis of a two-way moving cycle. With one unbalanced half, he takes one step and recovers his balance with the other half of the cycle in order to take the next step. If the interchange is equal, he will walk steadily. If not, he will stagger or fall. He has not committed a sin against God or the universe by thus falling. He has merely hurt his own body and gained an experience in doing so. Vapors rising from the ocean are balanced by rain falling into it. The balance of this planet in its orbit is so perfect that an astronomer can tell to the split second where it is at any time, or when an eclipse of the sun or moon will take place. If the Earth should vary ever so slightly in its orbit or become out of balance with the other planets in the solar system, its oceans would rise over its highest mountains and sweep all expression of life from its surface. The perpetuity of creation is based upon the constant giving of one half of a cycle to the other half for the purpose of repeating the creative process through another cycle of giving for re-giving. Living things breathe fully outward in order that they may breathe fully inward. Credits at the bank equal their debits. Repayment of credit simultaneously voids an equal debit. Compression in an engine is balanced always by an equal expansion. When an object has been hurled into the air, falls back to earth, It passes every point on its downward journey at the same speed of its upward journey. Human happiness can come only by obeying nature's law of giving in order that the other half of any transaction may equally re-give. The greater one's comprehension of the universal law of love, the greater is one's ability to obey it. There are many mothers who bring grief to themselves and great unhappiness to their children by their sacrificial martyrdom. In truth, they are not giving, they are taking. In the business world, unwise men take more than they give. They do not realize that they are breaking the universal law, which will eventually break them to an equal extent. It may not be balanced in the form of dollars and cents, but in the loss of goodwill upon which their future business depends. Man's ignorance of the law of love in personal and world relationships will not serve as an excuse to save him from disaster. Wealth cannot be acquired from others by might, for wealth thus taken will impoverish him who takes anything which is not given. Nor can power be thus acquired, for the weakness of the despoiled will prevail against the might of the despoiler. Everywhere in the world this law is seen working out its inexorable certainty. Empires built by might are dissolving. Rich world treasuries are disgorging their gold and piling up debt. The blood of every man killed by the sword has been paid for by 10, perchance 10 times 10 of those who killed. Nations which have fattened on the food taken from others are starving amid the ruins of palaces in which they feasted. A new world, one world, cannot grow out of a universe built on the foundations of hate and fear by unbalanced taking. A new world must have new foundations. An eternal foundation is not built as one whole. It is built lovingly, stone by stone. Thus must man rebuild his world. Once again read the law of love that our Father has given as a foundation to bring everlasting peace to his world of man. Rhythmic, balanced interchange.